Well, a buddy of mine showed me these sunglasses that have, there's readers in the bottom of the sunglasses. How great is that? Let's see if I can use these and read today. But anyways, first I'm going to give you guys a first-hand story. Now listen to this. My eyes are driving me bonkers. Something got in this eye. My eyes have been swollen and red and bleeding this whole time. I'm about to have a nervous breakdown, but something got in this eye and gunk started flying out. It felt like I was literally getting stabbed in the eyeball with a fork all night last night. It was brutal. My buddy's using Q-tips to get this mung out of my eyeball. It was insane. I was texting home to Sarah and she found you're supposed to put a warm cloth on it and hold it there, and I did that for about an hour and that really helped a lot. Thank God. I gotta get back, go see a doctor and get this shit dealt with. But anyway, so get this one. I've told everybody this dozens of times. It doesn't matter where you go. If you know people that spend time in the woods in North America and you start asking around, if you ask somebody if they know anything about this topic, there's a bug on the lens. Anyway, chances are, even a group of 2 or 3 people, somebody always has a story. Always. It's incredible. So I'll share this one first-hand account I just got yesterday from another guy I just met, real good guy. He's worked all over the U.S. He's a hunter, lifelong trapper, grew up in the swamps of Louisiana. And I got back to the camp early yesterday, and he's staying there while he works not far away, and had dinner with us. And he's asked me, he says, what is it you do again on YouTube? And I had to take him through the whole deal. And I said, look, I don't normally bring this topic up with people, I just don't. Because it's not a topic you just bring up with people and start babbling about if they don't know nothing about it or they have no interest. So I don't really talk about it. He's like, okay, that's okay, I want to hear about it. I'm like, all right. And I gave him the whole spiel how it doesn't matter if someone believes me or not. It doesn't matter. I explained to him, I go, look, once you get slapped in the face with the reality that you didn't ask for, there's nothing you can do about it. And he goes, I gotcha. So anyway, I told him about the whole deal, and he goes, well, one time, and I thought he was just going to laugh off the topic, but then he says to me last night, and you could see him getting goosebumps on his arms. And he said he was back home in Louisiana in the swamps hunting deer in the cypress swamp. Said, you know, he had the waders on, or knee-highs, whatever he had on. He's deep in the water. And he said that he heard a weird, crazy scream way off the distance. He thought, wow, what is that? Is that a cougar or something? There's not normally typically any cougars around there, but he did see one in Georgia. But anyway, he told me last night that he's in the swamp, and he said that he could not believe the feeling of being watched. He said it was incredible. Oh, you hear a bunch of hogs in the bush over there. But anyway, he said he's walking along. He's never been so freaked out, and he said, man, I was scared, man, I was scared. I'm like, well, what do you mean? He said, something was following me. I go, really? What do you mean? He said, I'd move, it would move. And he says, I could see 100 yards in that cypress swamp. There's nothing but water and cypress trees. And he said, this thing, he goes, first he heard the scream way in the distance, but then he heard something right behind him minutes later. And he said he would walk, and he said it would walk. And it said it was following him. He said he was absolutely terrified. And this is a kick-ass tough dude. And I'm like, all right. And he goes, I haven't even told my wife about this. I haven't told anybody about this. I'm like, it's okay, man. It's a typical, you wouldn't believe how many thousands of people have shared the same with me and everybody on the channel. And he goes, yeah. He goes, I'd stop. And he goes, it felt like it was right behind me. And he said, I'd turn around. There's nothing there. Nothing, not even a ripple in the water. And he said he turned around and started walking. And he said this thing was walking behind him. And then he said he lost his cool and he started running. And he said he could hear this thing running right behind him. And he turned around, he couldn't see anything. He said it was the longest trip out of the woods he ever had in his life, and he hopes to God, he said, that it never ever happens again. He said it was absolutely terrifying. I'm like, well, let me tell you. And then I went to Sharon a quick rendition of everything that we have come to learn about what's going on for real. But before I took him there, I had to explain to him, I go, basically, if you're not up to speed, the people who are, and the majority of the people who contribute to the channel, and I said, we're about at the top of the 30th flight of stairs now with learning, sharing, and accepting knowledge about what's going on. And I said, before I tell you what we know, keep in mind that you're at the first flight of stairs. And I go, and I don't really like taking people talking about the topic to people who are at the first flight of stairs and jumping past the middle and taking you to the 30th flight of stairs. I go, because that's what I'm about to do. But he's a very intelligent guy, and he was very intently listening and wanted to hear it. And at first he kind of drops his Gigantopithecus, and I'm like, no, it's not. Follow me. And I was patient and direct, and I just explained to him a quick rendition of what we know. And he was definitely taken back. I showed him the video that I have on my phone, and he was pretty amazed at that. And all he said after watching the video was, "Man, I don't want to see one. I don't want to go through that ever again." But he said that he did go back in there, and he said that every time he went back in there, it felt like somebody was right over his shoulder staring at him and freaking him out. But he never had any more things happen since then, and he says he prays to God he doesn't ever again. And he's visibly shaken up. He did not like that experience. So there you go, right? I've been with a small handful of guys here this whole time, and one of them has had an encounter. Not surprising to me, because it's so common, right? So frickin' common. But I hope I brought some kind of... What's that noise? It's a train. I'm not too far from a train track. Anyway, I just got the camera on the hood of the vehicle here, so hoping I can get a bunch of these done before the bugs really wake up, because once they wake up in this heat, they go to terrorizing you. But anyways, there you go, you guys. If you ever do come across a handful of people that are somewhat interested in the topic, keep in mind that jumping to the 30th flight, taking them right to the top of the flight of stairs of knowledge that we've acquired, is going to probably freak them out. So you're going to have to explain that to people thoroughly before you attempt to share what we've learned here with somebody who's brand new and doesn't have a clue. You know what I mean? But if you do it right, they listen and they understand that the people are speaking, and that is what's going on. Anyway, I hope I'm making sense. Now, moving along. This email is titled, oh, I got these sunglasses. I can read with sunglasses on. It's so crazy. This is titled Two-Chambered Heart. Hi, Steve. I listened to a reported encounter of a man who had a close encounter as a young boy. He was 10, where he claims he interacted with a young Sabe that his neighbor boy had befriended. The young Sabe was supposedly killed and cut open, and the witnesses said it had a two-chambered heart, or extra heart. I've read it. The manatee has a bulbous aorta, which looks like a separate chamber or extra heart. Can you inquire with your scientist friend if this is indeed true? The man's story has been reported to be very credible, with detailed drawings of the Sabe and an in-depth series of interviews in which he seems to be very believable. This man has a YouTube page called Midwest Bigfoot Researcher, and I believe his name is Randy, in case you want to check it out yourself. He's also a very good illustrator and has drawn many pictures of this encounter that happened when he was 10. Yeah, he emailed me quite a while ago and had a few back and forth, and I did listen to that interview, and it seems absolutely legit and absolutely alarming too, right? Because he was thrown on the ground, and the young one started beating on him, didn't he? Then somebody killed it, and the big ones showed up and were beating on the barns. All sorts of crazy stuff went on with that experience. Thanks for sending that in. There's another one titled Curiosity. Hi, Steve. I enjoy listening to your YouTube page and find the emails you read about Bigfoot/Dogman very interesting. I don't have an experience to share, sorry, but because this topic intrigues me, I have a couple of questions. I realize you're busy with all the emails, so I don't expect a response, but I can hope. So after hearing you say you lived in Pemberton, it got me thinking. I grew up in Lillooet and fished Cayuge Creek on the Duffy Lake Road, Highway 99, when it was still a dirt road. I never really saw anyone out there. Now, different story, very busy in the summer growing up, and even to this day, it's my happy place. I love it out there. My friends and I used to camp out along the creek all the time. Still do with the wife and kids. My question is, have you heard of any sightings between Pemberton and Lillooet, or Lillooet and West Pavilion? I always wondered because the terrain is really suited for these creatures. One last question. Have you hunted in the Lillooet area? I used to hunt with my dad, and some of the huge bucks we saw at West Pavilion were massive. Anyway, thanks for doing what you do, and I know there are lots of people that would rather stick their head in the sand out of their own fear of the unknown, just pretend these creatures don't exist. I've always thought if I came upon one, I might just wave and hope to God they know I come in peace and I'm just trying to communicate. I say that now, but I might just shit my pants and run. Again, thank you, John. Yeah, man, I don't know if you've listened to much on the channel, but that's basically another ground zero zone of British Columbia. Along that highway, and especially at Duffy Lake, there's been hundreds of sightings, all right? And especially all those places you mentioned. And yes, I'm very, very familiar with all that terrain myself. So there you go. This next one's titled My Bigfoot Story. My name is Joel. I have a couple of really unique experiences in my life, and I'm about 35. But the first time I really realized these things were real, I was just a kid. And I was out camping with my dad and his friends and some of the other kids. Myself and one of the other boys were sharing a tent, and the other person with me started shining his light around right near where the sun went down, and suddenly we see this shadow of something right outside our tent. At first we thought it was one of our dads trying to scare us, but we tried to ask them who it was, and there was no response. The unusual thing about the outline was that it had a pointy head. We thought his dad was wearing a beanie or something. We wake up the next day and we ask our dads why they were outside our tent, and they have no idea what we are talking about. We ask them where the hat is, and there was no hat. It was in the middle of summer, and no one had a beanie or anything that could make that shape. We even looked through his dad's stuff. Turns out my friend's dad, who was a farmer, had actually seen one of these creatures before, and he told us about it and what it looked like. That experience always sat in the back of my head, even up until I was an adult, but I didn't really know what to think about it. I did a lot of fishing in my early 20s, and where I grew up is a place in eastern Washington state called Walla Walla, and specifically the Blue Mountains, and that's where this all occurred. Looking up and researching fishing and hiking spots, I started to stumble on the occasional Bigfoot story. Turns out the famous researcher by the name of Paul Freeman had been in my area during most of the 80s and 90s and had a pretty sizable following in the Bigfoot community because he had been a forest ranger and ran into one and nearly spent his life searching for proof. I read a lot of the subject and about Paul and others because I thought it was interesting. But I thought, well, this is so rare, I may never get near one. A local newspaper reporter named Vance Orchard had written a book on the topic, and I read it all the way through. One of the interesting things about reading his book was it had listed all sorts of places I was well aware of and grew up near my entire life, so they were only a short drive away. I filed these in the back of my mind. I spent maybe 3 or 4 years going out into the Blue Mountains every chance I got. Now there's some federal land way out there called the Wenatah-Tucanon Wilderness Area, and it has some really prime elk hunting, I'd heard, but I hadn't been out there. The upper reaches of these mountains, especially a decade ago, were covered with snow most of the year, and this particular year was summer of 2008. I drove up one day to see where the snow line was with a friend, and we hit deep snow, so we didn't really get to go out very far. I wanted to go to this campground I had heard of called Squaw Springs then, Skyline Campground now, and camp out a night or two. It was also mentioned the books, and I'd been to the most of the other places in the book, so this is really kind of the unexplored territory for me, but interesting nonetheless. I hiked everywhere I could and not seen anything in the last few years, so I expected this trip to be the same. I contacted the rangers about a week later, and it turns out the snow had melted pretty quickly, and now the pass was clear, but this time my friend couldn't go with me. No big deal, I was just going to camp out a night or two and go home. I drove up to this campground about noon, so it's August. Hot day, and my car had been having trouble overheating from time to time. I get out to look around, and I hear a kind of a growling noise. I initially thought it was my car. A low, guttural, almost gargling noise that happens for a few seconds, stops, and then I hear it again in a minute or two later again. At first I thought it was my overheating car because of the regular intervals at which it was happening. The way it resonated almost sounded like a drain, and I've never heard anything like it before or since, and I've camped out at the same spot just last year. And trust me, it still creeps me out 11 years later. There's one other person who had gotten there before me, but this was really an out-of-the-way spot, I thought. Well, there must be some explanation for the noise. I started setting up my tent for a while and get everything situated, and I had a mallet in my car to hammer down the tent poles. I hear something hit behind me, like a large rock or something hit the ground, but I didn't see what it was. Now at this point I hear the growling noises again every few minutes, but also slaps of like wood hitting wood. This is really confusing. Bigfooters call this wood knocking, but I had no idea at the time what it was or if it was common noise. It was a common noise something made until I started asking people and heard some similar stories about it related to Bigfoot. I'm still setting up my tent, and at one point it almost sounded like this wood hitting wood noise was mimicking me hitting the tent posts into the ground. This was starting to get odd. I go back to my car and grab my camcorder. Smartphones were not much of a thing in 2008, and I hear something moving in the brush, so I think, this is whatever the F this thing is, I'm going to get it on camera. I start recording, and I go to where I hear some rustling. All that was there was a deer. Whew, I thought, it was nothing. All in my mind. I go back to the car, and then the noises are gone, so I decide maybe I should take a hike to a spot a mile or two away down the trail. I hike for a ways, and I start seeing, like, thin outlines of feet. And at this point, I think my imagination is getting the best of me. I have no idea what to think or how to process this. That's a weird description. I start seeing thin outlines of feet. Where? I go over a few small hills, and then I get to this point where there is a side of grade and narrow spot between the two hills that goes further down towards the Wenaha River and the lower part of the area. Well, lo and behold, on the side of this hill in a clearing, in perfect mud, I see the biggest footprint I've ever seen in my life. Alright, so I'm guessing you're meaning footprints. Sorry. Had to be about 1.5 feet long, 5 very clear toes, a heel, and I just sit there and stare at it. And stare at it. Look where I come from, and look where I came from, and look back down at it, just wondering what the hell I've come across. There's definitely 2 claws to be found in this print, and there are more prints coming up to this point and going down into the lower area. I feel a creature at some point has used this spot for getting down into the valley and back up to the high point I was at. Things start winding down. I hike a bit more, and I go back to camp. The other people who were there had left, and I start to get things settled in my tent. It's nice and cooler now, and it feels good because it had been so hot. I start to settle in, and all of a sudden, I hear the growling noises again, and I ignore it. Maybe it'll go away. I keep hearing it every minute or two. Now I start to think back. Oh shit, my car has been off for hours now. Now I feel really paranoid. The noises keep going, and it's just past dark. It starts to sound closer. It sounds like whatever it is growling right at me. I've never been scared hiking or camping in the woods, but this had me absolutely terrified. Finally, I can't take it anymore. I don't even collapse my tent. I get my flashlight, throw everything in the back of the car, and as fast as I can. I didn't even look back, and sometimes I wonder just how close this thing was from me. Went back into town, and I was so scared I started pacing back and forth down Main Street in Walla Walla to calm my nerves. And I ran into this girl I knew, and she even commented right away how visibly shaken I looked. I didn't even know what to say to her. And that was really the end of it. I forever wonder about that night. And that was the turning point when I knew these things were real, and I think about it every once in a while and wonder what these things are. I have dreams about seeing one, even all these years later, and it haunts me. I live in Seattle now, but I still go back to visit my old favorite part of the woods in Walla Walla. I really love the Blue Mountains, and it really feels like home to me, despite that crazy thing that happened. But it is quite the mystery to me. I'll always go to my spots, but it's been 11 years. And nothing like that has happened again. I really like that you are so bold about this because no one believes me when I tell the story. It just seems so far outside of their reality to them. You seem like a really stand-up guy. If you're ever in the Seattle area, let me know. I'd like to buy you a beer and shake your hand sometime. The world is a lot more wild than I think people realize, and that sense of adventure really speaks to me. I don't think I'll ever stop just wanting to be out there in the middle of the woods enjoying every minute of it. Thanks for reading my story, Joel Smith. Thanks for sending your story, man. Thanks for sending it in. I don't think anybody would hang around camping in a tent if they heard something growling, just as for starts. Welcome to the club. You know what it was. You know what it was. Well, this one looks like a real long one. Let's dive in. Hope it's not a rambler. Right? This is titled Sabe Encounters. I have some encounters I thought I'd share with you and the viewers. I grew up on a horse ranch in mid-Michigan in the 60s and 70s. We bred, raised, and trained pleasure horses, mostly Western saddle Appaloosas. We also trained and showed horses to promote the ranch and animals for sale, and I'm the only girl in a family of 5 boys, all of which were older than me but one. My brothers and I worked 20 horses a day in good weather. We got a lot of lake effect snow off the Great Lakes, so not much training was done in the winter. We did harness some of them to pull us on skis over the snow-covered alfalfa fields at breakneck speeds. We only lived to adulthood because we were too wild or stupid to die. In summer, we got our work done as much as possible early in the day while it was cooler, so we could ride through the fields and forest to some gravel pits. We each had our own horse that we'd ride for the fun stuff. The horses loved swimming as much as we did. I had a really laid-back horse that let us and all the other neighborhood kids jump off his rear like a diving board. One day, late afternoon, I took him out to ride on a trail by myself. We were just walking along, and suddenly there was a grunt that came like a burst. And at the same time, a whole flock of birds exploded out of the bush, and my horse bolted sideways so hard, I nearly flew off, and the saddle was hanging a bit off center. I hate it when that happens. I had this happen so many times over the years. I hate it, especially through Willow where there's silver stumps and the horses think it's a wolf beside them and go, ah! 90 degrees when you're sitting there totally calm, and your horse goes 20 feet like a... Sorry. The horse took off running so hard his hindquarters were tucked low, and he was busting forward so hard that it took me a mile before I slowed him down. I was finally able to stand in the stirrups to wiggle the saddle back in the middle of his back. He wouldn't turn around on the same trail to go back home for anything. So we had to take a long loop another way. And after that, if I left home with him by myself in that direction, he would fight going. I didn't see the Sabe, but I'm pretty sure my horse had. The next story, a couple of times this summer, my brothers and a bunch of our horse riding friends and I would go on trail rides in the state forest near where we live. We generally rode the trails, sometimes at full gallop like wild children. Back then, you could leave home for a couple of days as preteens and teens, and adults wouldn't worry. Various dads would come and meet us at a clearing where we cowboy camped. We called them the chuck wagon dads because we filled the truck bed with food and sleeping bags. They'd meet us in the clearing near a Fire Break Road, and we'd roast hot dogs and share some junk food and whatever cookies and stuff we packed. In morning, we had cereal and made peanut butter sandwiches for our packs along with apples from our orchard for the second day of cutting up in the forest. Then they left and let us loose again to the trails. One time in about 1975, when we all laid down to sleep, everyone quieted down and went to snoring. I never slept well. It wasn't for any reason other than that the hard ground and summer weight sleeping bags never offered much padding for me. I've had some serious medical problems since I was a kid and have always been in pain. Oh, that sucks. I was yet to be diagnosed at that point, but just thought everyone hurt that much when they worked and played as hard as we did. I drove tractor and trucks and threw hay bales since I was 8. Before that, I worked horses and mucked stalls, harvested and put up acres of vegetables and an orchard of apples and other fruits. We raised beef, cattle, and pigs, and we sold the meat. As I lay on the ground, the stars were so bright in the clear sky. I lay there just enjoying the view. Then I heard some strange whoops in the woods. And off to my 9 o'clock, one came, then another seemed to reply from my 2 o'clock. A few seconds later, the 9 o'clock gave a weird chirp, like the chirp of like a 700-pound bird. The whoops didn't draw my attention that much because I thought it was some kind of a fox or coyote, but the strange big bird sound caught my attention. I thought it was a couple of 17 and 18-year-old guys at first, trying to scare us. I was about 14 at the time. I sat up and looked over the group, counting bodies all over the ground. The fire had gone to coals and the moon was up high, so it shone bright over the sleeping kids. All 16 of us in the chuck wagon, and the chuck wagon dad were there and sleeping except me, so I laid back down. Then from my 10 o'clock, acorns started flying out of the tree line in big arches. They came at about 5-second intervals till there were about 30 or so launched. I was sat back up trying to figure out where they were coming from. And about then, as acorns were still landing around me, I heard movement at 3 o'clock in the tree line, which was only about 10 yards from a corral that we put the horses in. The fence was made of narrow logs. We tied the horses inside the corral around the sides. The horses got spooked and began stomping and blowing. The chuck wagon dad got up and walked over toward the corral, and a couple of kids stirred but didn't wake up. The dad spoke quietly to the horses and listened, but I don't think he heard the whoops. Big bird chirp or sticks breaking in the woods. After the dad went back and laid back down and was snoring in a few minutes, I spotted the swaying motion of a dark figure in the trees. Not really any details because it was in the tree shadows near the corral, but the hair on its head and shoulders caught light a couple of times, about 8 or 9 feet off the ground. It was there for a second or two, and then it just vanished. Funny, after that, I was finally fell asleep. I wonder if the two Sabe were tag teaming us because in the morning, the truck bed had been messed up, and the box that had the cookies and chips was gone. Not dumped, not gone through, it was gone. Everyone blamed the older boys for eating them, which they denied. And that morning when I got on the trail and back to our loud yelling and laughing and galloping, as well as some swimming in the river at lunchtime. We got back near the trailhead to leave the forest in the late afternoon. There's a tree across the trail. The root end of the 5-inch tree was laying on a branch The root end of the 5-inch tree was laying on a branch of another small tree about 4 feet off the ground, with some dirt still in the roots, and the other end was across the top of a brush pile on the other side of the trail. We just moved it off and made our way home. I think now more about it, and I know our night visitors were kind of seeing us off, probably glad we were leaving. The third and last story took place on my grandparents' property up in northern Lower Michigan. They owned about 450 acres of land surrounded on 3 sides by an Ojibwe settlement. Dad grew up being teased that he must be Skunk Alice's kid because he always had such a dark tan, even in the winter. Skunk Alice was an Ojibwe that we would walk to the pub that would walk to the pub several nights a week and often passed out in a ditch on the way home. That's sad. It was a funny joke because Grandma's side is Norwegian and most of us are blonde and very Viking looking. We used to go there a lot in the winter weekends to hunt and ride snow machines because there are some fun hilly areas out near a big river. One night my dad was dressing up to go outside. It was a full moon and we had a fresh snow all day. It was about 15 degrees and very crunchy and clear. Dad told me to get dressed to go with him and bring the young beagle we'd been training all summer. Dad liked to teach them to be quiet until he gave them the go to run the rabbits in a circle back around to him to shoot. Sometimes he took a kid so we could lay there with a new dog to hold them till he signaled to run. We walked out into the woods to a clearing at the top of the creek ravine. The clearing measured about 60 yards round. We lay on the south edge tree line and the ravine was off to the northeast side through about only 20 yards of trees before the land drops off quickly into the ravine. The pup was between Dad and I, under my arm, and we got quiet and listened for a bit. We were concealed in a small dip and could see the clearing really well in the moonlight. But after a bit, some rabbits were out, and Dad was whispering to the dog barely enough for me to hear to, wait, shh, wait. Then from across the ravine side, we hear some wood crack. The dog perks up at it, but does not, The dog perks up at it, but does good not to talk. Dad says, easy, wait. Then another few cracks. Then we hear breathing. It was almost like a deer trying to see who he's smelling, but it wasn't. It was like something really big breathing with a chest cold. Dad said there's a buck. Oh my God, bugs are coming out. Got one in my eye. Sorry. Dad said there's a buck over there. I thought it was a bear. I lifted my head just a little trying to see, but then it made a not bear, not deer noise that's hard to describe. It was almost like you'd say, huh? Almost like Scooby-Doo, but in a deep, deep voice. The funny thing was, though, that I looked down thinking I would have to settle the dog from taking or running out, but she nearly crawled underneath me. And when I looked up, the rabbits were all gone. Dad and I looked at each other and tucked as low as possible and just lay there breathing as shallow as possible. I can't even tell you how long we were there. The breathing across the clearing went on for another 30 seconds or so. Then the creature just walked off, and you could hear it crashing and stepping down the steep bank of the ravine with heavy footfall till I assume it reached the creek and walked away down the ice because we couldn't hear its big steps anymore. We stayed a bit longer, and the dog felt like she was breathing again. When we got back to the house, I told my grandma we heard something big, maybe a sabe. But Dad said probably just a buck, and I didn't argue. The Ojibwe always said you shouldn't go on about them, so I figured that's what Dad was doing. I found a show on YouTube, and all the stories sound so familiar. I had a dream about a week ago where I was standing on a house that was a mix of two different homes I've lived in since I've been an adult. And in the dream, there was a sabe on the front porch looking in the small half-moon window of the front door. I just looked up at him, and he looked at me for a bit, which was a strange feeling. So I just gave him a little finger wiggle wave, and he smiled and waved back. I woke up and laughed to myself. It made me think I never was scared these times. I was a bit shocked when my horse bolted and ran away with me, but just because he had such a strong reaction and wouldn't stop. I enjoy watching you because you have a calm, down-to-earth way, like my family. We're pretty even people, so you feel like one of us. Thanks for reading this. I know it's quite long. Signed, the Norwegian Grandmom. All right, Norwegian Grandmom. I absolutely appreciate you sending that in. And you just sent it to the Norwegian son from another mother. Yeah. That's probably one of the best ways for kids to grow up, as far as I'm concerned, with horses in the real world, not a care in the world, and just living life the way we're supposed to be, right? Enjoying it, raising your food. There you go. Welcome to the club, right? Appreciate you sending that in big time. Now, eyes are frickin' watering. Bugs are getting a little thicker. I wonder if I should... I'll keep going. I can do this. Here's another one titled Human and Sabe DNA. Hello, Steve. You may use everything in this email as I extend my hand to shake yours and introduce myself. My name is John Treich. Treich? Hope I didn't butcher your name, John. If I did, I apologize. I live in Churubusco, Indiana. Never seen or experienced a Sabe, dogman, UFO, alien, or anything else. I do not believe they exist. I know they do. Thousands of people all over the globe reporting the same experiences and pattern prove this. Yes, it does. Oh, God. I'm getting thicker. Sun's coming up. Now to what my thoughts are. Please bear with me as I tend to wander in my thoughts at times. Who are you talking to? If I'm remembering correctly, Sabe DNA consists of human female and unknown male. Mammals, and yes, humans are mammals, like bear, deer, coon, and so on. Mammals require both a male and female of compatible DNA to mate and produce an offspring. For example, humans cannot mate with a deer and produce an offspring. So in my thinking, an unknown male DNA must have an unknown female DNA to complement it. Well, that's probably what we're raised to believe, but who knows at this stage of the game, right? Oh, my eyeball. For example, humans cannot mate with... Oh, I read that. Sorry, you guys, I lost my spot there. All this is speculation, as I have no proof or evidence. And let's just say, unknown male and unknown female mate and produce an offspring, say a purebred Sabe. And a human female and unknown male mate and produce an offspring, say a half-breed. Since humans are smaller in size and stature, the half-breed would be a bit smaller from the purebred. Let's say the half-breed are 8 to 11 feet tall and the purebred are 11 foot and taller. Again, just speculation. The difference in experiences might be explained in the difference between pure and half-breed. Half-breed experiences may be the less terrifying experiences, as they are curious to the human half of their makeup. The purebred may be the more intense experiences, as they see us as a threat by tainting their DNA. Not knowing their cultural, societal, social structure makes this hard to prove. This also might explain why some Sabe seem to have difficulty with their abilities, like only the lower half being transparent and so on. This would be the half-breed struggling because of their human DNA. A second thought. What would be the odds of another human-type being developing into a totally different dimension, being close enough in DNA to be compatible with humans? Scientists say humans and apes are not compatible in DNA to produce an offspring, but we supposedly evolved from apes. Yeah, right? And what would be the odds of these beings finding our dimension out of all the possible dimensions to come here and mate with humans? Third thought has just come to mind. Again, this is just speculation. What if the gravity in their home dimension is a lot greater than ours? That might explain their size and strength and speed. In a greater gravity, they would develop more muscle mass to power through the stronger gravity. When in our dimension with a lesser gravity, they would be much stronger, faster, and so on. This is all speculation, as I'm not a scholar nor a celebrity Bigfoot researcher. Take from this what you will, leave the rest. Thank you very much for this platform and sharing the knowledge from around the globe. Sincerely, John Treich. Treich, T-R-I-E-T-S-C-H. John, I loved reading that, man. I've never seen or experienced Sabe, but you're listening and you're learning and you're trying to put it together. Thank God for you, man, and many others like you, because that's what we're trying to do. Share the knowledge to people who want to know and who are going to get their own wheels turning and try to figure it out. Bingo! It's a huge sigh of relief from me. Love hearing that. And you never know, but what I have heard from people who apparently are in the know with the DNA thing and these beings, we're talking 30 years plus of looking into them, what I gather is apparently they do believe that some of these beings are of more, quote, pure form and some aren't, which makes sense for some of these beings to have more peculiar skills than others. Who knows, right? I guess we'll possibly find out. I don't know. I'm so glad you got the wheels turning, and I hope everybody else is too, man. I hope everybody is taking it all in and trying to really try hard to come up with some answers. That's what we're all doing. Instead of just sitting there gazing at the screen, licking a window going, oh, that wasn't a very good one. Oh, that one is really repetitive. I'm getting tired of this. I'm going to unsubscribe. Please do. You know? But anyway. Oh my God. I know. Don't touch your eyes. I know. Now, one thought I had the other day, you know, a lot of people, they take out the scriptures from the Bible, biblical stories and history, and they're saying that, what is that, Genesis 6 or something, when the beasts come forward, they will be able to end the life of a man just from the sight of them, right? And a lot of people are convinced those times are coming, and these beasts are amassing and getting ready to annihilate us all. We've heard that a lot. Now, if I look at it from just a common sense, rational, I like to think I've got some common sense, and I think rationally, and I look at everything from all angles, which you have to come up with the correct answer yourself if you can. Why, if there were beings here, since allegedly, maybe possibly longer than us, definitely as long as us, I believe, why would they wait? If you're going to go out of your way and you're waiting for this special day to come and annihilate the humans off the planet, why would you wait all these years to do it? Why wouldn't you do it before there were billions of human beings running around the planet? If that was the original goal, the original mission, and that's what's coming, well, thinking with common sense and rationality, why wait? That doesn't make sense to me. It's easy to prove these beings have been around for frickin' ever. And if that was their true eventual goal, why would you wait until there's billions? That's like the wild hogs here. What if the first Spanish ships came here, dumped these wild hogs on the beach, and you were here and you knew what that was going to equal to very soon? You would get on that handful of wild hogs and annihilate them right now before there's billions, because it's going to be a big pain in the ass later. Right? Do you think that makes sense? It does to me. I don't get it. A lot of things don't mesh up, a lot do, but that one's confusing for me. I'm not saying what I believe to be true or not. I'm just saying there is a species of similar beings as us, creatures, monsters, biblical monsters, fallen angels, whatever, and their mission was to physically annihilate us off the face of the planet, one big wave of assault, and they've been here the whole time. It just doesn't make sense that there is literally billions of people now, and they haven't got off their ass to do it. I don't know. I do know there is absolutely a war going on between good and evil right now, without a doubt. And whoever's behind that war is doing a pretty damn good job at annihilating humans today around the world. There's no denying that one, right? Annihilating society, annihilating lives, annihilating, dividing. It's a pretty shitty thing to witness. Pretty shitty thing to witness. Okay, enough babbling. Here we go. There's another one. This is titled, Military Encounter in Colorado. Steve, you'd read my story in December 23. It was regarding a Sabe encounter I had hiking in the Eagle River Valley in Colorado. I served 4 tours in Iraq, and I was hiking to help deal with some PTSD issues I have. I was combat wounded in 06, where I almost died to a roadside bomb, IED. Struck my vehicle, and a complex ambush followed. Well, anyway, I was hiking with only a Smith & Wesson M&P 9mm when I encountered 3 Sabe. 8-foot female, 6-foot tall male, and about a 5-foot tall male. Full encounter was already read. Anyway, I worked with a sketch artist to capture the face of the female in which I had tattooed on the top of my foot. Picture included of the tattoo. People would say, why would you get this Sabe tattooed on you? I would say it's a mark in time, a rough time in my life that I don't want to forget because I've come so far in my journey from almost dying in Iraq in 2006, going on to serving 3 more tours in Iraq, retiring in 2014, a horrific Sabe encounter in 2018, which led to heavy drinking and suicide attempt in 2019, based on all the trauma I've dealt with over the years. Well, anyway, I attached a photo of the 8-foot-tall female Sabe. Sorry if any punctuation errors as I'm typing from my phone. Steve, thanks for all you do. Keep the fire on the shitheads that are supposedly running our countries. The American dream has no meaning these days, and haven't for a long time. I am slave to the system, and I wish it weren't true, but it is. The only thing I am willing to expose these animals for who they are when the opportunities present themselves. Richard, retired Master Sergeant, U.S. Army Reconnaissance. Richard, appreciate you, man. And I'm so glad that you're a brave, kick-ass man and didn't quit. I hate it when people quit. You're killing it, dude. Thanks for coming out, man. I'll just hold this like this. But here's his tattoo on his foot. And that's what he saw, resembling the 8-foot-tall female Sasquatch / Sabe he ran into. There you go. No explanation needed, my man. No explanation needed. People don't need to explain their tattoos. Right? There are times in life. There are times in life. I'm glad you're still with us and you're kicking ass. One more, I'm going to get going. I gotta start packing my stuff. This is titled Bigfoot Encounter. So one night I took my little brother night fishing in an attempt to get him off his video game and getting to do something outside. Good for you. I love hearing that too. Well, we began hearing footsteps and a grunt or two off in the woods. Now we live in Georgia, and we're in a swampy area, so we figured that the footsteps were just hogs. So we decided to get into our tents. We were in 2 separate tents, by the way, due to space and comfort. And then all of a sudden I hear gunshots. So I rush out of my tent only to see my little brother white as snow in the face with tears running down his face. He said that it reached inside of his tent and drug him halfway out. He was scared enough that he had slept in the tent with me for the rest of the night, and we woke up in the morning, our fishing stringer was gone. And we had a Yeti cooler which seemed to have been ripped open and tossed around or something throughout the night. To this day, he absolutely refuses to go in the woods alone and without a weapon. Endo email. That sucks. Right? You're just starting to get him outside and get him off the damned device. And that happens. What are the frickin' chances there? That sucks. Why do they do that? We talked about that with that fella last night from Louisiana. I'm like, they outclass us so fiercely, it just doesn't make sense why they intently stay alongside of us and torment us. I guess because it's too easy, right? It's too easy for them. Whether or not they think they're doing anything bad doesn't matter. The fact is, it's annihilating so many innocent people. It's really shitty. Really shitty. But anyway, there you go. That's the end of reading emails today. Oh my God. Can't take this anymore. I gotta get to a doctor. Anyway, what can I share about today? For all you outdoors people, the update. A friend of mine, real good friend, top of line human being, guided turkey hunters all his life, turkey freak. And he wants me to get one so bad. And you know, typically, I don't really give a shit. I just want to see friends and talk to people, meet people, and speak and take in the life. But water over there. the sound of the boy turkey.
That's the one with the balls.
That's the boy turkey.
That's the boy. Yes. He has testicles. And a big.
He's big.
He's really big.
That hand's on the other side of the water.
We need to sit down. Quickly.
Okay.
Right there.
All right. He's so angry. It's like me when I'm fishing and I'm guiding, or I got friends and we're not catching anything and they don't care. It's beautiful. It's like, you don't understand, Steve. It's amazing out here. And I'll be like, I don't care. I have to get you to catch a fish. It's driving me crazy. So I know exactly what he's going through. It does drive you bonkers, but. We finally went to the spot, sat down, and once you sit down, that's it. You can barely move because these wild turkeys have been hunted for generations. If they see even a twitch, they run. So we just sat down, and 30 seconds later, they start falling out of the timber all around us on the ground. A hen flies down in front of me. I got her on the video. I set up a camera, hit record, and just let her rip and hope something might walk in front. And then he's whispering to me. I can't see we're at the same tree, and he's whispering. Goes, it's huge. It's right in front of me. But my gun was 90 degrees to the left. There's nothing I could do but listen to this. Because, man, it's strutting. It is huge. It's strutting right there. I could shoot it easy. I'm like, shoot it. He goes, no, I want you to shoot it. I'm like, shoot it. Shoot it. But he wouldn't shoot it. And then a hen came right to my left, 5 yards. And it's funny when you're leaning up against a tree, relaxed, and you know to not move. It's easy to not move. But as soon as something's coming, it's like you're struggling. Everything's a strain, trying not to vibrate, and you're trying not to blink your eyes. And I'm staring at the ground because I don't want to look him in the eye. But she walks behind me. And then all of a sudden, 3 more, what a young turkey's called a jake. 3 jakes come walking into about 6 feet from me to my left. And meanwhile, this big, huge Tom is fanning his feathers out, strutting right in front of my buddy, like right behind me the whole time. And all we could do is sit there. And then they all eventually walked away. And that was it. Didn't happen. I don't give a shit. That, for me, that being in the forest around here in the south, for me, I love it. First light in this forest, in these cypress swamps, is just magical, man. It's so much life. So good. And then you get to have that intense experience when all your senses are on fire and you feel alive. It's just a real special moment being alive, and it's a memory, right? It's a real great memory. I don't have to kill a turkey. It doesn't. I mean, that's fun. It'd be great. I'd love it. It'd be exciting. It'd make my body feel great. It'd be an awesome picture, an awesome memory. But for me personally, just the whole scene, sharing that moment in time with a good friend, first light in nature and all the animals coming to life in the forest and the swamp, and then having adrenaline and being intense and all of your senses on fire. I mean, what more can you ask for, right? It's a massive win for me.
Hear that?
And I didn't sit on a snake or step on one on the way in. Anyway, they will put some of that video on the tail end of this right now, and for all you outdoor enthusiasts, you can have a listen. What went down? I got the hen on there anyway, but the jakes were too much to my left. They didn't get in the shot. I don't think. I haven't really looked at it yet, but there you go. If you're sitting on the fence holding back, try to let it out. It's a pain in the ass to write an email up, but try to get it out, all right? Try to share what you've seen, what you know, all right? It's very important. It might not be that important to you, but I'll guarantee you what you are holding inside. What the hell's that? Something in the car moving. whatever it is you're holding inside, it just might be something that really, really helps somebody who's distressed and disturbed and needs to hear it, all right? So just think about it that way if you're still on the fence and you haven't got it out publicly yet, all right? And I won't share your name. But anyway, that's all she wrote for today. I think I'm leaving in a few hours. If not, maybe I'll get talking to stay until tomorrow morning. I don't know. My buddy's got to drive to Texas, and I got to go home. I got to get out of here. I have got to go home and see a doctor and get this shit cleared up. I'll be back. Share my story at howtohunt.com. That's where you get it heard. Sarah's store is reloaded with all the classic stuff everybody loves so much. Links below. That's about it. I got my hunting book out, but everybody knows that. I'll put that link in the bottom. Gotta love the sounds. Be back later.